All right, so we've implemented here 4 of 5 CRUD operations. We can find all the users and display them. I can create a brand new user. I can remove a user. I can go fetch a particular user so I can edit it. Right? But we still have to implement the update a user, right? Meaning I'm going to change a field. I'm going to send the new fields that I've modified so far, and then make updates permanent on the server. So let's see if we can do that. All right, so we'll start off by adding an update button on my form. So the form has a create button. Let's add now an update button. So this would be update, and this would be an update button. Update. Okay, we're going to handle that request, right? We're going to need a variable to hold that. So we'll be this will be an update button. Update. And in main, we're going to grab that button. So this will be grab the update button, and the update button right here. And if I click on the update button, I'm going to call update user. Okay, update user. So update user, we're going to implement somewhere here. So edit user, selected the one I'm using. I want to edit, and update user is going to actually update them. So update user. So to update the user, this is going to look very much like the post, right? I need to again build a new object, right, with the new fields, anything that I've modified. I changed the username, I changed the password, I changed the last name, I changed a whole bunch of things, right? I need to rebuild that into an object that I can send over to the server with all the fields that I've modified. Make sense? So it's going to look very, very much like the post. So let's go take a look at the post. Create user. So I'm just going to copy this. It's going to be very, very similar. So I'm going to grab this, and in the update, I'm going to paste this. So I'm going to create the brand new user. Maybe I'll call it, instead of new user, I'll call it updated user. Right? I'm going to clear the fields, and then I'm going to call update user. Right? Update user, which is implemented in my service. We haven't implemented that just yet. Right? Presumably, my update user is going to send a put instead. Right? And that put is going to need 2 things. It's going to need the new user, the updated user, and it's also going to need the ID of the user that I'm editing, right? So I kind of need that ID. Where can I get that ID? It's not in my updated user. I guess I need to remember what user was I editing. Somewhere I need to store that and remember that this is the user that you're currently editing. So we can do that in our edit, right? We can say edit. We can declare a local variable, let current user index or something, right? So this might be start off with -1, and here we can just remember that the current user that we're editing is this index over here. Since we have that now, in our update user, we can go fetch the actual user that we were editing, right? We can say fetch me that user, the updated user. So updated user, the ID is going to be the user's sub current user index, right? Dot underscore ID. Right, so that's the ID. So update user will take 2 arguments, right? The ID of the user, right, and the actual user. Right. So let's implement update user. So update user, there it is. It takes the user ID and the user. Let's implement it. Again, it looks very, very much like the post. So I'm just going to copy the post. There's our post. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to paste it in our update. There's only 2 differences. One, it's not a post, it's a put. Right? We still need to stringify everything that we send over. So we need a string. We need to tell it that it's a JSON. Right? That's the same. And the other difference is that the URL needs to include the ID of the object that I am sending you, right? That I'm updating. Yes. So I'm going to just copy it from this right here, this URL. I'm just going to paste it in there. paste. All right, so that's the update. All right, so let's try it out, see if this blows up. All right, so let's go back and refresh. And so if I click on edit, Bob, then or add, I can say, add word, and click on update, and it didn't seem to work. Wait, what? Refresh. Oh, wait, it did change. Wait, what? Update. What's update doing? Oh, it's pushing. Yeah, because I copied from post, and post was updating, right? It was adding to the array. Yes. So it did work. It did work. So I don't really want to push, right? The update works. It is updated. It comes back, and I'm just going to render users. Now, what does render user do? Render users renders my local array. Yes. Renders user, but my remote array changed. Correct? My remote array changed because the username changed in the remote server, but locally I never updated my local array, so they're out of sync. So now my local array is is out of sync, right? So there's a couple of ways that I could do. What I could do is splice out, right, and remove the old object in that index and then replace it with the new index. I could do that, or what I could do is what I could do is see this find all users over here, right? I could just say, you know what, I'm just gonna throw away the old list, right, and go fetch the list entirely new, right, and rebuild it from scratch. Right, so that's kind of like a sledgehammer solution. Yes. Yes. Yeah. No, you could totally do that. That is the safest way, and I'll discuss in a minute. So what we're going to do is going to go with this sledgehammer solution, and then talk about when would you go one way or another. So this user service, what I'm going to do is, because I want to do this again, of fetching everything and rendering it again, I'm going to put this in a reusable function, right? I'm going to call it, I'm going to say function, find all users. And I'll put in here the user service find all users, which renders the whole thing, clears it out and re-updates my array from scratch, right? And then re-renders the whole thing. Make sense? Right? So since it's reusable, now I can go back up here in my update. Where's my update? Right here. Instead of calling render users, I can call my find all users, and refresh. Let's see. So edit, and this might be Bobby, and it says update. Notice that it updated, right? But the way it updated is that it went and fetched the entire array, dropped the entire list, and re-rendered the entire list, right? Obviously, this is much more expensive, right? Now, when would you go using this sledgehammer solution, and when, the way we've been doing it is, hey, the old array, I'm inserting a new record, and I'm making sure that I insert the same record in my local array. Yes, and I'm crossing my fingers, right, and says, okay, well, I'm hoping I'm staying always in sync, right, with the updates that I'm doing with the remote data data structure and what I'm updating locally on my data structure. Yes. Now, if I'm the only user, right, then there's little to worry about, right? But what about if I'm editing that data structure, and maybe a couple other dozen folks are also editing the same data structure, right? I'm editing, right? Somebody else is editing and inserting things that they shouldn't. What if you have 3, 4, 5 different people that are editing the same data structure? I'm always going to be looking at a stale version of the array. Make sense? Right? Because I only have my little copy. Not until I refresh my entire page would I see the very latest, right? Okay. Especially if this is a real-time game, obviously this would not work, right? We would need to have a single place where you have the central source of truth, right? Where the state is the same for everybody. And if you have multiplayers, then it's very important that everybody sees the same universe. Yes. So we can't have our stale little copy of the world, right? Instead, we want everybody to have the same. without going to broadcast the world to everybody, which we'll see a little later when we look at WebSockets. What we could do at least is that instead of in each one of these, when we do the create, for instance, when we do create user, right? In the create user, what do? We make sure that it adds it to the server, but we then add it to the local one, right? Again, it could be that I have a stale copy of this array, because there might be other three folks who have added three different users, which I don't have now, right? So ideally, it's what I could do instead. What I could do instead is that actually let's look at it, right? Say I have this going around, right? And say I have Safari, and I'm editing the same thing. I'm looking at the same users, and this is on the right, and this is on the like that. Oops. What? Like that, right? So if I'm adding here user 1 create and user 2 create, obviously it's not being broadcasted, right? We'll take a look at WebSockets a little later. But here, if I'm adding user 3 create and user 4 create, notice that I'm always, each one of us is working with a stale copy of this array, right? Instead, if we go by where instead of pushing it and storing in a local array, if instead we do find all users, right? At least this would be improved just slightly, where if I add here user 5, I create, right? And I go here and I create user 6 and I create. Notice that now not only do I have user 6, I also have user 5, the one that you created on the other side. See that? Right? At least that minimizes what each one of the how stale is what we're currently working. Make sense? Right? You're pulling much more frequently. Yes. It's not sorted by anything. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's randomly sorted. It should be by date that it was added, but I don't think that either. I'm not sorting by anything. I guess I could. I should. Yes. Sure. Yep. Exactly. Yep. You could do that, and it could be at a broadcast, right? You broadcast when the server gets a new update, right? It would broadcast everybody who has registered. It would broadcast the deltas, right? And then each one of the clients would be responsible for updating their own local cache based on that delta. Okay. But with that, to be able to do that, we would use sockets and things like that. And we'll chat about sockets a little later. Yes.
So if you go to update Bobby to Bobathan and
Mhm.
then you hit update again, would it change it to be blank since you set the update variable to be the index of Bobby?
Why would it be blank?
Because you currently have, like, if you go to edit it and
Yeah.
you change Bobby to something
Yeah.
and it updates, the value of the index that you're editing or updating
Yeah.
is still Bobby's, and then the thing is empty. So if you hit update again, would it?
Oh, yes, it would. Yes, it would empty it, right?
So then, how would we?
You would have to handle the index of whatever current is, right? So say it would be that maybe when you update, not only do you clear the index, the input field, right? You would also maybe put the current to be -1, right? And then say that if it's -1, then update should be ignored, right? You might also have the button, the update button, only appear when there's something that you've edited, right? And maybe toggle between create and update. I mean, you could get pretty fancy on the user interface and disallow errors like that, right? Where you hide things and that's the best user interfaces where it hides things that you shouldn't be able to do, right? And then only shows you those buttons and those affordances that only might make sense in that particular state of the application. Okay. All right, excellent. So we've created all the various CRUD operations, right? In user service, we have all the CRUD operations. We have the create, we have the find all, find by ID, update, and delete user.